So we don't know the actual game times for all of Tennessee's football games in the fall, but we do know the windows, and you keep on winning, you got to get things going, you get those primetime slots, and that's where you are with Josh Heupel and the Vols in 2024. This is a success. We'll break down the time windows for game times this fall here on a Wednesday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Wednesday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I am Eric Kane. Glad to have you guys here with me today. Appreciate you making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. Of course, you everydayers, you know it. You can download us, subscribe to us, follow us, watch us, listen to us, all that and more for free wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube and you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. And of course, wherever you listen, download us. That's how we spread this show and get it in front of more and more Tennessee fans. Big shout out to GameTime for making this show possible. You can download the GameTime app, create an account, and put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Got a loaded show coming up. We're going to discuss the GameTime windows for Tennessee football and why it is a success. And something to celebrate, because in years past, it wasn't like this. But what you win, when you're winning football games, you got a lot of positive hype, no pun intended, around the program. Good things are going to happen. So that's coming up in a matter of a couple of seconds. Ryan Schumpert, Rocket Top Insider, is going to join the show and talk a little Tennessee baseball to Omaha for the College World Series in segment 2. And then more on Tony Vitello's rant and some College World Series history for Tennessee baseball. All that and more coming up here on a Wednesday show. All right, so the game windows, I guess, is kind of what you're saying here. That's how you're going to phrase it. They were announced, Southeastern Conference, along with ESPN's family of networks, ABC and all that. They set the game windows for the 2024 slate for all 16 SEC schools. And there's a lot to be excited about for Tennessee. Before I kind of get into the nitty-gritty here, how they went about it was they have an early window, they have an afternoon window, they have a night window, and then they have a flex window. And what that flex is, meaning, you know, what games are coming up that week, what are going to be the better games, what are going to be the most important games. They can flex that from, say, maybe, you know, the afternoon into a prime time or to a night, or from the night to a more of a late afternoon game, just depending on where each team is down on the schedule. I mean, flex is a good thing. You see that a lot in the NFL for those Week 17 or Week 18 matchups for the league. So the early time slot is from noon to 1 o'clock Eastern. The afternoon is from 3:30 to 4:30 Eastern. The night is from 6 to 8 Eastern. And then that flex is between 3:30 and 4:30 or 6 and 8 at night. And Tennessee has 5 flex options on its schedule, meaning Tennessee is going to be in front of a whole lot of eyeballs this year. Tennessee is going to be flexed for the Oklahoma game on the road on September 21st, at Arkansas on the road October the 5th, against Florida at home on October the 12th. The third Saturday in October is going to be flexed against Alabama at home on October the 19th. And then one more flex option for Georgia. And, of course, potentially you could be playing for not the East anymore, but maybe a spot in Atlanta, a big-time game against what will likely be the number 1 team in the country entering the season, and that is Georgia on November the 16th. So count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flex options for Tennessee, and that's good. Again, that means the networks want Tennessee the networks want Tennessee to be in front of more and more eyeballs, and that's really, really cool because, again, so many times throughout the Butch era at times, and certainly the Jeremy Pruitt era, Tennessee didn't get a whole lot of primetime slots. The CBS 3:30 games, and again, you're not on CBS anymore. You've ventured on to the family of networks over at ESPN, but you got a 3:30 time slot simply because, you know, the viewership was going to be there. But, I mean, it was always against Alabama or always against Georgia, and you always got pummeled. Maybe Florida, and you always lost those games. But you didn't get a whole lot of run on that 3:30 time slot. So this is really, really cool. A couple of night contests, 2 night games. That is going to be, at least in this window, and we'll go over what was already announced last week and the weeks prior. Kentucky and Tennessee will be playing at night on November the 2nd, and Mississippi State in Tennessee, another home game on November the 9th. Those will be night games. So night at Neyland, a couple of those games on November the 2nd and November the 9th in succession there against Kentucky and Mississippi State. Of the games that were announced, the windows of the games that we didn't know already, only one window for early was positioned for Tennessee in 2024. And this might be my favorite part. Why on earth do we want to waste time playing Vanderbilt at night? This game is going to be on the road. Let's get it done early in the day. Let's come home and let's be back in our own beds that night for fans and media alike, right? That's going to be the early contest. At Vanderbilt in Nashville is going to be the early window. So that's fantastic. I love that because that game in the grand scheme of things should not be much. Tennessee should run all over them. Vanderbilt's not going to be very good this year, and it's the last game of the regular season, and it's a holiday weekend. So you got to love that. You really, really got to love that. Actually, that's not a holiday weekend anymore, but nonetheless, you move on, and that's the end of the regular season. So that's great. Of course, Tennessee's first three opponents were already announced. Tennessee's playing against UT Chattanooga. That's going to be an early game, but it was already announced 12:45 on the SEC Network. That's on August the 31st. Tennessee will be at a neutral site in Charlotte against NC State at 7:30 on ABC on September the 7th. And, of course, a night game. I'm not crazy about a night game against Kent State, but anytime you play under the lights at Neyland Stadium, that's fun. 7:45 on the SEC Network against Kent State on September the 14th. And then, of course, there's going to be a 1 o'clock game against UTEP on November the 23rd. That was previously announced as well. So Tennessee will have two early games to conclude the regular season. 1 o'clock on November the 23rd against UTEP, the early window against Vanderbilt on the 30th. Couple of night games that we know for sure, November the 2nd and November the 9th against Kentucky and Mississippi State at home. And then, of course, you've got a home game against Kent State at night on September the 14th, and then a night game at a neutral site field against NC State on September the 7th. But those flexes, which, again, can be anywhere between 3:30 and 4:30, those flexes can be anywhere between 3:30 and 4:30, or 6 and 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Got 5 of them. Again, those flex games at Oklahoma on the 21st, at Arkansas on the 5th of October, against Florida on October the 12th, against Alabama on October the 19th, and at Georgia on November the 16th. This is a really, really good schedule for Tennessee. It means that there's a whole lot of hype around the program. People want to see what you look like this year in the fourth year under Josh Heupel. If you can rekindle some of that 2022 magic, what Nico Iamaleava looks like. Is he the second coming at quarterback? Is he going to be a Heisman Trophy front runner? All that noise. People want to see James Pierce because James Pierce is going to be obviously one of the top defensive players in the draft, but he's going to be one of the top overall players in the draft coming up in the 2025, next spring. There's a lot going on, and can Tennessee take that step and push for a college football playoff berth with the 12 teams, expand to college football playoffs? Can Tennessee be making a push? And since Tennessee, in my opinion, will be making a push, a lot of those flex games are going to be critical. They're in the middle part of the schedule. That game at home against Florida, because you never beat Florida. The game at home against Alabama, at home against Alabama, because it's the third Saturday in October. That's always a huge game. Even the ones that begin the SEC schedule on the road against Oklahoma and Arkansas. I mean, Tennessee should beat Arkansas. We were asked this in the Monday Night Chat. I mean, Tennessee should beat Arkansas, but going on the road in the SEC, usually it's never a cakewalk for the most part, right? And so that's going to be a challenging game, in my opinion. So these flex games are going to be huge for Tennessee. And then, of course, the flex option on the 16th against Georgia, that will certainly be a big-time game for Tennessee trying to make the postseason, and Georgia maybe trying to stay undefeated or trying to fend off one loss. And we'll see if Tennessee can take down Georgia. So I love this schedule. I think Tennessee fans, for the most part, on a Tuesday, everybody I've seen post on social media, everybody I've talked to, pumped up about this schedule. You should be pumped up about this schedule. Really, really great time slots. And that just kind of goes to show you how much work Josh Heupel has put into this program and kind of where you are in entering year 4 of rock bottom, where you were when he took over in late January of 2021. All right, when we come back, Ryan Schumpert of Rocky Top Insider. We're going to talk a lot of Tennessee baseball as the Vols are heading back to Omaha for the 3rd time in 4 years, 7th time in program history. That is coming up next as we continue on here with a Wednesday Locked On Vols. I want to say about our friends over at GameTime. GameTime is an app to where you can download and you can buy tickets to events in your area. whether it's a sporting event, comedy event, concerts. There's all types of events that goes on over at the Food City Center and Thompson Bowling Arena. Tons of concerts throughout the year, and comedy shows, and of course monster truck rally, bull riding, professional bull riding as well. All that goes on over the Thompson Bowling Arena and the Food City Center, and you can buy tickets to all those events by using the GameTime app. And when you download that app and create an account, you can put in the promo code LockedOnCollege, and when you do that, you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Again, Locked On College, LOCKED, for $20 off your first purchase. Why the GameTime app? Well, you get flash deals, you got zone deals, you got all-in prices, you get last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. Plus, the lowest price guarantee, where GameTime's going to credit you 110% of the difference if you find a cheaper ticket somewhere else in that same section. All that and more is over on the GameTime app. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. Ryan Schumpert of Rocky Top Insider, he joins us next. Ryan, Tennessee baseball again, third time in 4 years, seventh time in program history. It's becoming a norm, at least it feels like for us, right? Tennessee baseball back in the College World Series in Omaha at Charles Schwab Field. Overall thoughts on Tennessee's season to this point, and of course, what's coming up this week in the greatest show on dirt.
Yeah, obviously another really successful season for Tennessee baseball, and I say that without even thinking about Tony Vitello's speech the other night. Obviously, I think it would have been a very successful season for him either way, no matter what had happened over the weekend. But for Tennessee to overcome Evansville, get back to the Super Regional, I think it's really. This team's been really, really good. I think even better than anybody expected. I think we all knew the offense was going to be really good. I don't know if we knew it was going to be great the way it's been. And then the pitching staff had a lot of questions, and all the more questions if you would have told us at the beginning of the year that what A.J. Russell ends up throwing 13 innings or whatever ended up being this season. It's been a little bit overachieving from really good to great on the offense. And then, you once again, as Tony Vitello kind of did after the SEC tournament championship against LSU, kind of just give your flowers to Frank Anderson for what he's been able to do to make this a productive and honestly a pretty deep pitching staff.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I checked it going into Supers. I haven't checked in the last couple of days, but I mean, number 3 ERA nationally. And you're exactly right. You take into account that A.J. Russell has tossed 12 innings and a third, and he was hurt pretty much his last 3 or 4 appearances. Just wasn't himself. Taking the fact that Drew Beam has been up and down a little bit, it's been pretty phenomenal to see how they pieced it together, and the performances from A.J. Causey and Xander Seacrest here of late, and the roles that you've had for Snead, Combs, and Kirby, and then again, it's becoming deeper with guys like Binky and Loy and Phillips stepping up. To your point, but I think I wrote about this yesterday. It feels like Frank Anderson's done many, many great jobs throughout his career. I think what he did in 2022 was phenomenal with a newcomer and 2 true freshmen. This year might be just as impressive.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think it's more impressive just because the talent aspect. I mean, Tennessee has 2 guys that throw upper 90s, and one of them, Marcus Phillips, is, like you said, he's kind of just come on in the last couple of weeks as being a guy that they give meaningful opportunities to, let alone, truly trust. So they're doing it with different pieces. They're doing it with a lot of guys that I don't necessarily think have long professional baseball futures ahead of them. Not that they won't get opportunities, but to me, it's really, really impressive. And I think kind of going off that same note, I think for so much of this year, the question, and rightfully so, was, does Tennessee have enough pitching? Do they have enough guys? To me, I think the conversation around the pitching is completely changed. I think they have enough guys. I think the depth's actually pretty good, especially when you look at it this way, going this point on, you start College World Series on the first day. So Tennessee's first 3 games, no matter how it goes, there's going to be at least 1 day in between them. So they're going to be able to rest guys. To me, the question becomes much more about, does Tennessee have a top end guy? Because it doesn't feel like they have that truly elite arm. And even as solid as their pitching's been, and even though they don't have to face a Paul Skeens, they don't have to face an Andrew Abbott, they are facing a pitcher in Jamie Arnold in Florida State game 1 that will be better than who Tennessee starter on the mound will be. Probably not significantly better than what A.J. Causey's been, but better, and has thrown more innings this year. So that first game is always so important. And to me, the question with the pitching staff, or maybe the shortcoming, is that there isn't just that one guy that you go into that game feeling really, really confident that they can go 6, 7+ innings and not allow many runs.
So that begs the question, Tony Vitello has not really done this in the past, but I mean, the question's always, continue to be asked, should you shake some things up? With that off day or 2 off days guaranteed if you play 3 games, again, I'm not doing it. I'm not touching it. You gotta dance with the girl you brought. I get all that, but like, technically, you could open Nate Snead, get you off to a right start. But then, like, do you want to burn Nate Snead and AJ Causey in the same game? I don't think so. You open Nate Snead, then you lose that security blanket there, that he's been so good, behind Stamos. If you started Causey, like, I mean, he was fine for a little bit, but then, he's been so dominant in the role that he's in now. Like, for me, it's more or less like Drew Beam needs to be Drew Beam of old. Xander needs to continue what he's doing and just kind of roll with the punches. I don't see any changes, but again, it's been something that's been asked to me a lot this week.
Yeah, I don't think they'll change anything just because it's worked pretty well for him. I do think it's a fair question, on both what you do on Friday and if you switch Xander and Beam. The thing to me, I kind of go back and forth on the Causey Stamos deal. And to me, it's if you don't start Stamos, you just start Causey. You say he's going to be fine. It was 2 bad outings. He's been so good. I think he would be fine. To me, the thing with Stamos, one, I don't think last week he was as bad as the numbers indicate. He was good in the first inning. 2-run home run he gave up would have been a flyout, probably not even to the warning track next week or this coming week at Charles Schwab Field. And, how do you use Stamos if he's not the opener? Because it doesn't feel like out of the bullpen there's a real clear role or a clear spot do you feel like he's good in. I almost feel like the way they use him, not that he's always been perfect, but kind of does maximize his skill set to the most. So I definitely don't think they'll mix things up. I tend to think you probably don't, though I could see the arguments for either way. And to me, the more compelling question, and again, I don't think they will mix anything up, is just do you switch Xander, Seacrest, and Drew Beam, just because of how good Xander's been and Drew having some struggles there. So again, I don't necessarily think that's an easy question either. But to me, one that, I may be more seriously thinking about it if I'm in the coaching spot.
And on a normal weekend too, if you open with Stamos and his count's not up to 50 or 60 or whatever, you always have that option to bring him in. Now Tennessee's never done that, but they've always had the option. And I think they love having that. I don't want to call it an ace in your back pocket, but an option in your back pocket to another lefty arm that you could throw out there in a certain situation. So I know the setup now is a little bit different, but that's always been an option. Let me ask you this, man. 99 Miami, okay, the number 1 overall seed, the curse, all that's a lot of conversation, but I'm not saying, are you predicting Tennessee to win the national championship, but like, why not Tennessee this year? It's just, I know these teams are good. Every team is good enough to be here. Every team's good enough to beat Tennessee. Tennessee, though, I feel like if you play your brand of baseball, you could be the last team standing. I mean, I feel like Tennessee's as well equipped as any team. I mean, you're the number 1 overall seed. I feel like this could be the year that Tennessee makes an extended stay, wins multiple games in Omaha, just because top to bottom, I think it's the most well-rounded team in the country.
I think so too. I mean, I think they're the best team in the country. Probably not a wide margin by any means, and it hasn't felt all year like there's really a true dominant team in the country. And I don't think Tennessee's that, but yeah, they're the one I trust the most going into the College World Series. And I haven't bought into the number 1 seed curse, much at all. I think there's probably something to having the pressure on you, especially those first 2 weekends, and especially the Super Regional, just because the margin for error is so small in a 3-game series. But once Tennessee got there, once Tennessee gets to the College World Series, to me, I feel like a lot of that pressure, especially in a year like this where they're not talked about as the heavy favorite or anything like that this week, I think that disappears. So I think, they certainly are capable of being the team to do it. If you told me Tennessee or the Field, I'd probably take the Field. But if you told me I had to make one pick, I'd probably say Tennessee. So I don't, and it would be, probably a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Fitting, I guess, in some ways, fitting and funny. Fitting for Tennessee 2 years ago to have been such a big favorite and to not have made the College World Series, and for all the people to hype up the number 1 curse because of that. And then kind of funny when you roll it around to this year, when I feel like a lot of Tennessee fans would have rather done anything. They would have rather gone 2-0 in Hoover than have to have been the number 1 seed because they wanted to avoid it. So it would be kind of ironic if Tennessee this Tennessee team was the 1 seed that got it done.
All right, last thing I want to ask you. I was asked this on an interview with SEC Unfiltered earlier in the week, and I've already mentioned his name in this conversation with you. And it's kind of unique because he's a pitcher where you're just going to get the ball once, maybe twice if things go your way. But I think the X factor in the College World Series this year for Tennessee is Drew Beam. You have got to get good Drew Beam. Whether you say he gets that start in the second game like normal, whether it's an elimination game or whether it's to stay in the winner's side of the bracket, you have got to get the guy in Drew Beam that was 17 innings and a third of 2-run baseball in 3 postseason starts last year, compared to the guy you've seen in his last 3 starts this year, 13 innings, 14 runs. You've got to get Drew Beam pitching well for his first time around, and then hopefully you see him again at some point to pitch for a second time. My X factor is Drew Beam. Who's your X factor? Of course, it could literally be anybody in that 1 through 8 in the starting lineup. Let's throw the DH out the window. Although Dalton Bergram going home, baby, he had 2 home runs. Maybe he's a guy there. Who's your X factor for Tennessee?
I like the Beam call. To me, it's not anyone in the lineup because there's just so many guys that are good. It feels like any one guy could not be at their best, and Tennessee could pick them up. If you're going to name an X factor in the lineup, it's probably Inslee and Curley, just because they haven't been as consistent. And I think they have the talent. And certainly Inslee's been incredibly consistent the last 5 weeks. And if he keeps on hitting the way he does, that lineup becomes all the more a headache. But no, I'm with you. I think it's a pitcher. I think Drew Beam's a good choice, because I do think if Tennessee's going to win the national championship, Drew Beam has to be better than he's been the last 3 weeks. I'll say Nate Snead, because he's had a little bit of that inconsistency too. Not super inconsistent. Obviously, the bad outing in Game 2 against Evansville. Maybe a 2 or 3 week stretch in the middle of SEC play where it wasn't like he was bad, but he wasn't at his best. But just where you say Drew Beam's only going to be used 1, 2, maybe a third time over the course of the College World Series, it feels like Nate Snead's a guy that could be used a bunch of different times in a bunch of different roles to come in and get 2 outs and shut down a game like he did Game 2 at Vanderbilt, or come in and pitch 3 innings of long relief like he's done a multitude of times this season. So I'll go with Snead just from the standpoint of when he's at his best, we've seen him be really, really dominant and probably the best pitcher on this Tennessee team, but it hasn't always been that way. And just the fact that they can use him in so many different roles and use him kind of as, it feels like these Tennessee teams always have one real high-end bullpen reliever that is just an absolute X factor. It feels like Snead, when he's on, he's that guy for his staff.
Yeah, no doubt. And on that same note, might as well say Kirby Cannell, because he's going to throw every single game Tennessee plays in Omaha. So he's going to face a batter or face an inning. He's just old rubber arm. Ryan, appreciate it as always, man. Thanks so much, and look forward to. Man, I think it's going to be. I truly think it's going to be an extended stay in Omaha. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will. I tend to be with you, so I'll see you there.
Always great stuff there from Ryan Schumpert of Rocky Top Insider. I encourage you to check out his work. He does just a really, really good job, man. And, of course, I hope you subscribe and you check out all of our stuff. I think we got the best team in Knoxville covering Tennessee, and that's over at volquest.com. But others are good in the market as well, and Ryan Schumpert is one of those guys. So I appreciate him coming on the show and contributing to this show as he does all the time, so check out his work. Tennessee, man, 3rd time in 4 years going to Omaha, 7th time in program history. Tennessee last year winning a game over Stanford on the greatest show on dirt. That snapped a 6-game losing skid in the College World Series, and it was the first win for Tennessee since dating back to 2001. So Tennessee's doesn't have a ton of experience in Omaha, but it does have 7 appearances now, and I believe that is tied for 6th in the Southeastern Conference and most appearances in the College World Series. So again, it's not like it's a newbie. Certainly here of late, Tennessee's gone to the College World Series in 2021, 2023, and then again here in 2024. The first time Tennessee's gone in back-to-back trips ever in the history of the program. But, and we'll get into more of that success conversation here in a moment, because I want to go back and revisit a little bit more of that Tony Vitello rant. You need to start winning games, in my opinion. It's not good enough just to get there. And, of course, you're always trying to win games. Don't get me wrong. Talking with Luke Lipsius on the porch, our baseball podcast over at volquest.com. And I remember talking to him last year going to Omaha, and he was like, in 2021, we were pumped. We were ready to go. But it was just, man, we are so happy to be here. This is so cool. This is incredible. And sure, they were trying to win. They were competing their hearts out, but it was just incredible to be there, and then you go in 2023 and it was a different group of players, some holdovers, but it's like, okay, well, let's get in here and actually, try to make a little bit of a run here. And you won a game, and that's great. But here come the Tennessee Volunteers again, number 1 overall seed in the country. There's no Dylan Cruz that you're going to have to face in game 1. All right. There's no Dylan Cruz out there for LSU. There's some good pitchers, don't get me wrong, and it's wide open. Any team in the field can win this. And we'll break down Tennessee's side of the bracket for Friday's show, before Tennessee plays in that night game at 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN against Florida State, a really good pitcher in Florida State. But it's wide open. You don't make it here by accident. And so it's going to be a challenge. But why not Tennessee? You are the best hitting lineup in the field. You are one of the best staffs in America that you just continuously find ways. You continuously just, find ways to win and find ways to get it done. So why not the Volunteers? Tennessee is as well equipped of anybody left standing. So in order to be the national champion, you have to make it out of a regional setup. And as I explained on the show yesterday, it's 8 teams. Bracket 1 is 4 teams. Bracket 2 is 4 teams. You play a regional setup, okay, just like you did 2 weeks ago against Northern Kentucky, Indiana, and Southern Miss. If you win that region, you advance on to play the best of a 3-game series in the College World Series Finals. And so you're combined. That's why baseball is so hard to win a national championship. You literally go through this regular season. Then you go through a conference tournament. Then you go through a regional setup. Then you go through a super regional setup. Then you go to Omaha and you got to do both again. And so if you run the table, man, you're looking at staying there about 10 days. The last game possible is on June the 24th. So I think Tennessee is good enough to win this whole thing. I truly do. You look at the history in Omaha, though, here of late. Tennessee 1-2 last year, lost to LSU 6-3, took down Stanford 6-4 in comeback fashion. That was fun. And then lost 5-0 to LSU in the elimination game. In 2021, you were 2 and done. Lost 6-0 to Virginia, lost 8-4 to Texas. In 2005, you were 2 and done. You lost 6-4 to Florida. You lost 4-2 to Arizona State. In 2021, you went 2-2. You won 2 games. You lost 21-13. How about that being a football score? 21-13 to Miami. You won over Georgia 19-12. Boy, there were some high-scoring games. You won against USC 10-2, and prior to last year's win over Stanford in the College World Series, that win over USC was the last one. It was dating back all the way to 2001. And then you lost to Miami again, the eventual national champion, 12-6. And so it's been a minute since Tennessee's won games in Omaha, more than one at least, and that goes back all the way to 2001, and I think Tennessee can do that here this year. In 1995, you went 2-2. You won 3-1 over Clemson. You took an 11-1 loss to Cal State Fullerton. You beat Stanford 6-2, and then you lost to Cal State Fullerton again, who went on to win the national championship 11-1. Miami as well in 2001 won the national championship. And then you go all the way back to 1951, okay? And Tennessee finishes the national runner-up. So let's see if Tennessee can make a run here, can rewrite some history, some double those win totals in Omaha, and for the first time since 2001. Why not Tennessee? You are the number 1 team in the country, and I truly do believe the number 1 curse, it can be lifted this year. I'm not calling it a Tennessee national championship shot because, as I wrote in the 321 over at VolQuest.com on Tuesday, this field is too good. This field is too unpredictable. This field is just too challenging that I would be a fool to call my shot. But I will say, why not Tennessee? Tennessee can certainly do this. And so we just got to see how Tennessee kind of navigates through the field. But it starts with a really, really good pitcher and a really, really good team in Florida State on Friday, 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. We'll break down the Seminoles. We'll break down North Carolina. We'll break down Tennessee's side of the brackets coming up later in the week, and we'll see what happens. Again, the bracket number 1 is Tennessee, Florida State, North Carolina, and Virginia. Bracket number 2 is Kentucky, NC State, Texas A&M, and Florida. Florida's got some Ole Miss 2022 vibes for sure. Getting hot at the right time after a really, really tough regular season. Okay, real quick as we're going to end our show. Grant Ramey, been really, really big help for me throughout this postseason run over at VolQuest.com. Helped me cover Tennessee baseball, doing some of the work from home. And we did it on yesterday's show a little bit, and I just kind of want to go run through the highlights a little bit, but he broke it down, like the highlights of Vitello's rant the other night. Remember, after Evansville, if you're just joining us, you didn't catch yesterday's show and you haven't seen it, Tony Vitello went on a 7-minute monologue opening statement to begin his post-game press conference after the Evansville win that punched their ticket to the College World Series. He did not like a question that was asked to him the day before whenever Tennessee lost in heartbreaking fashion 10-8. And essentially the question was, if you don't make it to Omaha, would you still define this season as a success? And he sat on it, stewed on it a little bit overnight. His players didn't like it, and he went scorched earth. And he talked about, defining success and talking about that 2022 team and how it was ranked number 1 overall. And, people didn't like that team, and people thought that they were, bad boys of college baseball. And he said, you know what? That team got you talking about college baseball. So, yeah, they're successful in my eyes. And talked about Jared Dickey and how he was a huge leader for the 2023 team, and how he had to transform his body, and how he was a leader and how he was successful. But he didn't win a national championship, but he was still considered a success. He talked about no handouts. It was about, Grant has it here, roughly 200 words into his 1,372 word opening statements. Tony Vitello kind of ventured towards name, image, and likeness and recruiting. And here's the quote, and I love it. And while I'm at it, anybody that thinks about visiting our place that we're recruiting, and you think this is the place where you can come in and have your hand out and see how much money that we can give you, don't waste our time and don't waste your time. Tennessee, of course, over the weekend had 4 players who visited. Miami utility man Blake Sear, who has since committed to Florida. Louisville infielder Gavin Killen, who I think Tennessee is still very much in on. Wichita State Tommy Lepore. Really, really good player that I think Tennessee's still on. And then there was one other that was scheduled to come in, but he never made it, and that was Bowker, a pitcher from Georgetown who committed to Vanderbilt before even showing up to Tennessee. The Noah Webster was just the best, talking about defining success in the dictionary, Noah Webster's dictionary, and some of these quotes. It's Noah Webster. Webster's dictionary, Vitello said. It says success is a degree or measure or achievement, or is, if you read in another deal online, degree of measure or succeeding. Those 2 words right there, and I definitely ain't the smartest fellow. Degree and measure means you get to pick. You get to pick what success is, which is pretty awesome. And then I think Ryan pointed this out on social media, actually, and I love it. One of my favorite parts about this whole thing that I think is so underrated. He says, Noah Webster was a thinker, and the big thing Noah was, he loved his country, big-time patriot, which is kind of a lost art around here nowadays. He didn't mean around here in Knoxville, just in general. Love that part, but here's the most underrated part that Ryan pointed out on social media, and I had to go back and look at the transcript, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. He said, so I don't know the guy, but I got a ton of respect for him. The dude died in the 1800s. Of course you don't know the guy. Man, the rant was one of the all-time best from Tony Vitello. Again, the highlights, what is success, Noah Webster's Dictionary of Success, no handouts. Talked about playing with house money, how that was Evansville this weekend, but nobody thinks the number 1 overall team in the country can win the whole thing. So Tennessee's playing with house money right now because they should be the underdog because there's a curse on the number 1 seed. He went on a rant about that, and I thought that was funny. And then he was also very complimentary, of course, to Evansville and to specifically Evansville center fielder Ty Rumsey, who went face first, or actually, went shoulder first, trying to make a catch of the wall in center field, had the ball bounce and hit him in the face. Really, really gutsy effort by him in that super regional. So anyway, a lot of great stuff from that post-game rant. And of course, we've dissected a little bit of it for 2 days in a row. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go check it out. And if you're a Tennessee fan, you're like, man, that's my coach. I'll run through a brick wall for you. That is for sure. Tony Vitello is something special. All right. So appreciate you guys for tuning in and for getting after it here on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Vols. We're going to do it again on a Thursday, and we're going to get you set, of course, for Friday's College World Series opener against Florida State and everything else involved in Tennessee athletics, football, game times, of course. That was a fun conversation this show earlier today, and anything else in Tennessee football recruiting. A massive recruiting weekend coming up. We'll talk a little recruiting as well before the week is up. Appreciate you guys as always. Please subscribe to Locked On Vols to the YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts. And let's do it again tomorrow, where you can make Locked On Vols your first listen. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody.